How did a man born without arms and legs conquer colossal challenges to inspire millions around the world? The story of Nick Vujicic is nothing short of extraordinary. From his early days, he confronted adversities that many of us can hardly imagine. His life journey is a testament to resilience, hope, and the power of the human spirit to overcome any obstacle. Nick was born on December 4, 1982, in Melbourne, Australia, to Serbian immigrants, Dusanka and Boris Vujicic. The doctors were astonished to see a healthy baby boy born without limbs, a rare condition known as phocomelia. Nick's disability was a surprise as there was no indication of it before his birth. He had 2 small feet, one of which had 2 toes. Despite the initial shock and despair, his parents decided to raise him just like any other child. This decision played a crucial role in shaping Nick's indomitable spirit. Despite being different from other kids, Nick was encouraged to participate in regular activities. He learned to write using the 2 toes on his foot, used his shoulders and chin to turn the pages of a book, and even figured out a way to throw tennis balls and kick soccer balls. His determination made him a captain in various sports activities in his school. However, his journey wasn't without its dark times. Growing up, Nick struggled with feelings of loneliness, depression, and worthlessness. He was bullied at school, which led him to question his self-worth. At 10 years old, Nick even contemplated suicide, feeling that the world was against him and his life was without purpose. But it was a note from a school janitor which read, "You're going to do great things, Nick," that sparked a change in his mindset. Realizing that he needed to reframe his perspective on life, he started focusing on what he could do instead of what he couldn't. With this new mindset, he began learning to swim, fish, and even surf. Nick's transformation was marked by his grit, courage, and relentless pursuit of self-improvement. There was a drastic shift in Nick's life during his late teens. One day, as he was leafing through a newspaper with his chin and shoulder, his eyes fell on an article about a man with a disability who had achieved significant life accomplishments. The article shook him like a high-octane espresso shot. Nick's heart pounded, his thoughts whirled, and in his mind an idea formed. He could be a motivational speaker. Imagine a teenager without limbs, dreaming of standing on stages around the world to inspire and motivate people. Crazy, right? But Nick was not the one to shy away from big dreams. After all, this was the same guy who had managed to win a game of soccer without legs. It's fair to say the word impossible wasn't in his dictionary. Now here's where the fun part begins. Nick didn't just want to be any motivational speaker. He wanted to be an entertaining one. He wanted his audiences to laugh, cry, and leave feeling like they could conquer the world. And so, he started crafting speeches and stories filled with humor, wit, and powerful messages. He began practicing in front of his family and friends using his charm, infectious smile, and yes, the very condition that set him apart. Remember, he had no hands, so he couldn't use hand gestures that speakers often use to engage their audience. But he had his voice, his words, and his unique perspective. And he knew how to use them effectively. Nick started out by giving talks at his prayer group. With a cheeky grin, he'd often kickstart his sessions with, "Well, as you can see, I've got no arms to hug you all, but I've got a heart big enough to embrace you all." His anecdotes about overcoming day-to-day challenges were peppered with humor. For instance, he'd tell the story of how he managed to win a fight against a vicious fly that kept landing on his nose, or how he learned to fish by casting the line with his teeth. His presentations always managed to make audiences laugh and cry in equal measure, leaving them not only inspired but thoroughly entertained. With a dash of charisma and a whole lot of courage, Nick was ready to bring his motivational speaking career to a whole new level. But what does a man do when he wants to stir things up? He goes on a road trip, of course. Nick, his toes at the wheel of his custom-designed car, took off on a journey across Australia, telling his story to anyone who would listen. He spoke in schools, churches, and community centers, not missing a beat or a joke. His sense of humor was his secret weapon, serving as an icebreaker that instantly warmed up the crowd. He'd start his talks with a smile. "I bet you're wondering how I drove here today, right? Well, let me tell you, it was no small feat." With every laughter, the initial shock of his appearance dissipated, allowing his powerful message to reach people's hearts. But Nick wasn't just in it for the laughs. As he drove from town to town, sharing stories about everything from his misadventures in brushing his teeth to his triumphs in surfing, he started noticing something significant. His words were making a real impact. People were not just entertained, they were inspired. They began to share their own struggles and how Nick's story had given them the courage to face their own challenges. His reputation grew faster than a kangaroo on a hot tin roof. Before long, invitations started pouring in from all corners of the world. New York, London, Tokyo, you name it. His passport quickly filled up with stamps, and his speeches, with the words of many languages. During one particularly memorable speech in China, Nick, wearing a traditional Chinese hat, wiggled his nose and cheekily remarked, "I know you were expecting a hand wave, but I hope a nose wiggle will do." The audience erupted in laughter, easing the tension and opening their hearts to his message. Nick's charm, combined with his powerful story, was a recipe for success. In the midst of this whirlwind international tour, Nick found himself standing in front of thousands at the World Economic Forum. With influential leaders and global powerhouses in the audience, he knew this was his moment. But did he let the nerves get to him? Not a chance. Nick rolled onto the stage and broke the ice with a cheeky comment. "I'd give you all a standing ovation, but, well..." The room filled with laughter, setting the tone for one of the most memorable speeches in the forum's history. As Nick's story spread across the globe, he continued to spice things up with his contagious humor and captivating storytelling. But it wasn't just about entertaining. He had a message to deliver, a message of resilience, hope, and the belief that every hurdle could be turned into a stepping stone towards success. This entertaining man born without limbs was, against all odds, living a life without limits, and in doing so, he was inspiring millions to do the same. Nick Vujicic, our no-limbs hero, didn't stop at just words. He put his money, well, his feet where his mouth was. With a heart bigger than the Australian outback, he started a non-profit organization, Life Without Limbs. Their mission? To share the message of hope around the world, particularly focusing on those who were feeling isolated, depressed, or bullied. Imagine a mailman showing up at your doorstep, a big package in his hands. You open it, and there's a message. You are loved, you are valued, and you have a purpose. And who's the sender? You guessed it right, Nick Vujicic, the man whose life radiated positivity like a disco ball radiates light. But Nick knew running a non-profit wasn't going to be a walk in the park, even though parks were his favorite places. Remember his first surfing experience. There were wipeouts, salty water up his nose. But did he quit? No way, Jose. He surfed that wave like a pro, and he was going to ride the wave of running a non-profit the same way. Life Without Limbs started to grow. They organized camps, community programs, online support groups, you name it. People started to recognize their logo, a tree, which stood tall and firm, much like Nick's spirit. The organization wasn't just benefiting individuals, it was changing communities and cultures, proving that every challenge could be turned into a triumph, and that every person, no matter their circumstances, had a unique purpose. As our story comes to its grand finale, let's reflect on Nick Vujicic's extraordinary journey. Born without arms and legs, he conquered his challenges with the resilience of a boxer, the courage of a lion, and the humor of a stand-up comedian. He not only learned to live life fully, but also inspired millions to do the same. Now, isn't that a tale to remember? If you're amazed by Nick's journey, don't just sit there spellbound. We want to hear from you. How has Nick's story touched your life? How are you overcoming your own challenges? Let's continue this conversation in the comments below. Remember, every like, share, and subscribe helps us to bring more inspiring stories like Nick's to people around the globe. So hit that like button, share the inspiration, and subscribe to our channel for more extraordinary tales of resilience and hope. And as we end this incredible journey of Nick Vujicic, remember his words, "I don't need easy, I just need possible." No matter what life throws at you, remember to face it with a heart full of hope, a mind full of courage, and perhaps a pinch of humor. Keep shining and keep conquering your own colossal challenges. And most importantly, never forget, even a life without limbs can be a life without limits.